What up, bitches? It's the MisanthropikOne, aka He Who Hungers, and I'm back up in this bitch for another rant/review. Today I want to talk about this album right here, Prolyphic's latest album with producer Buddy Peace called Working Man. Prolific is an MC from Rhode Island who is signed to Strange Famous Records, which is a record company owned by one of my favorite underground rappers, Sage Francis. I got into Prolific a couple years ago because of my boy Mike. He put me onto him, and I picked up his CDs. I have his first one, which I believe is called An Alarm Set for 901, I think. Then he has this album with a DJ/producer called Reanimator called The Ugly Truth. And he has this other CD called Times Table Scraps, where it's a bunch of like freestyles and I guess shit that he didn't use or whatever. And definitely love his style, man. He uses a lot of idioms in his wordplay and shit, in his bars. And shout out to Prolific, man. You're a dope MC. I hope you continue doing that style of hip hop, that poetic wordplay. It's just fucking ill. Excuse me, camera's slipping. But yeah, let's get into this shit. This whole album is entirely produced by Buddy Peace, so there's no need to go down producers and all that shit. Very few features on here, thank God. There's only Sage Francis and the Meter Maids. Shout out to Sage Francis and the Meter Maids. If y'all haven't heard Rooftop Shake by Meter Maids, go pick that album up. And anything by Sage Francis. But let's get into the pros. Pros of this album, if you're into Prolific, you already know his style. Lyrically, he didn't change, thank God. Conceptually, he didn't change. For example, he has songs like Drug Dealer, where he's talking about these companies like Bristol Myers, Pfizer, and how they basically sell drugs to the public, and how the public is addicted to shit like that, how they make money off of sick people, you know? This has been talked about multiple times in the media. It's great to hear Prolific make a fucking song about it. Death of the Boombox featuring Sage Francis and Meter Maids. That song is basically about hip hop, you know, it's a traditional save hip hop song, if you want to call it that. Track 7, which is probably my favorite track on here, is called Fuck Banks. And I love the way this track basically took a turn in the middle of the verses, because the first verse is Prolific talking about him standing in line at a bank and his interaction with the teller at a bank. And he's telling a story about that, how even, you know, him going to take a lollipop and that's not even free and shit like that. And then the whole song takes a turn when he starts talking about how some of these banking companies are corrupt, and he takes it from the bottom level, which is his interaction with the teller, all the way to the top, you know, talking about how corrupt it is, how they exploit people and money and shit like that. I may be using the wrong words, but you know what I'm getting at. Listen to that fucking track. He has a lot of tracks where there's concepts being used, and he's no stranger to that. Thank fucking God. Another pro is that there's only 2 features on here, and there's 13 tracks, and those features are on Death of the Boombox, Sage Francis, and Meter Maids. That's it. Rest of it is Prolific over Buddy Peace's beats. So that's a strong pro there. Cons of the album. The biggest con for me, I would say, is Buddy Peace's production. When I first heard this shit, and I think it got to track 2, Business as Usual, that beat kind of threw me for a loop because it was sort of upbeat for Prolyphic's style. Because if you listen to Prolyphic like I do, you know that he usually raps over stuff that's not as upbeat or jazzy type samples, dirty samples and shit like that. Just dirty, grimy shit. And in my opinion, I'm not saying Buddy Peace is a whack producer, but I'm saying I prefer Prolyphic's older shit before I listen to this, you know, as far as production goes. But that's the biggest problem I have with this album. Other than that, it's a pretty good listen lyrically. Not all the beats are questionable. It's just like some of them, like I know definitely Business as Usual, that took me for a loop, and that kind of like had me shaky the whole time I was listening to the album. Like I was just like kind of antsy, like where's this production going, you know? It has to mix with the subject matter, and the beats on here, some of the beats don't really fit Prolyphic style perfectly like a glove. Oh, let me go back and mention one pro. Speaking of that track, Business as Usual, that's like the first time I've heard Prolyphic actually rhyme a little bit fast compared to his style, because he doesn't really do the double time thing. That I really wouldn't say is, I guess you could say it's double time, but whatever. Y'all know what I mean. If you listen to the shit and listen to some of his older shit, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. My rating of this album, I would give it a straight 7, maybe a 6.5 at the lowest, but a 7. I feel a 7 on this. Go pick it up, solid listen. Shout out to Prolyphic, shout out to Buddy Peace, shout out to Reanimator, and shout out to Sage Francis and all the motherfuckers on Strange Famous. I love that fucking label. And if you haven't heard of them, go on their site. I'll leave the link down there. Go check out some shit, because they got a bunch of artists and MCs you gotta check out. And that's all I gotta say, all right? So everybody else, y'all know the deal. Leave your love, leave your hate. Most of all, subscribe, support dope shit, and that's it. Peace, bitches.